All right, this is Dan Meehan for MMA Manifesto, and today we're doing a series of Where Are They Now features, and today we have UFC veteran, the Ultimate Fighter Season 2 finalist, and the man with my all-time favorite MMA nickname. It's the Hillbilly Heartthrob, Brad Imes. Brad, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Yeah, really good. Thanks for stopping by.
Good.
First of all, can you tell us a little bit about your sort of background and as much as you're sort of comfortable to share, of course?
No, that's fine. Was born and raised in Missouri, which is right in the middle of the United States for those across the pond that may not be familiar. I grew up in a little town in northwest Missouri and started wrestling when I was a little kid. And uh, funny thing, when I graduated high school, I was only about 5'10"
Wow.
and about 170 pounds, and then just kind of blew up and played football in college, and then played a little semi-pro and arena football, and then I moved to California and I was out of work, so a buddy of mine who had fought in Germany, or was German, but he'd fought in Japan, said that the Japanese, that I should get into fighting because the Japanese love big white guys and I could make a lot of money fighting. So I decided to give it a shot, and I guess it was like 8 or 9 months later, I was on the Ultimate Fighter reality show. So
There you go. So
but,
it all came together pretty quickly. So yeah, like you like you say, you went on to star on Tough Season 2, so making the final despite being the last pick on Team Franklin. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience on the show?
yeah, it was, and I always say that it's one of those things that I'm glad I did it. And I cherish the experience, but I would never want to do it again. It was, and our season was only like 6 or 7 weeks. Season 1, they were there for like 13 weeks.
Wow.
So it was like Marine boot camp for them. I mean, they would have been miserable. Um, but it was a great experience. I'm still in touch with a lot of those guys through Facebook and whatnot. And it was a very challenging experience. Before I got on the show, Scott Adams, who he ran the WEC before the UFC bought it, and he had fought in the UFC, and I fought in the WEC before I got in the UFC. And he told me, like, before I auditioned for the show, he's like, "You got to audition for the show." And I'm like, "Man, I don't even really know what the hell I'm doing." He's like, "It doesn't matter. You're great big. They'll love you. You'll get on the show, and then you just got to basically tell everybody that you don't know what the hell you're doing, and maybe you can win a fight or something." So it's basically what I did. I was injured when I went on the show, and then I re-injured myself during training. And then, like, in the second week I was on the show, I got shot up with cortisone in my knees and elbows, which kind of helped get me through that lasted throughout the filming. And I was able to, with just I guess grit and luck, I was able to get through Rob McDonald and Seth Petrozelli, and really did much better than I even thought I would do. And I guess it's certainly a lot better than the coaches thought I would do, since they picked me last. But I think one of the reasons I was picked last is because I was injured. They don't really show that on the taping of the show, but my knee was pretty jacked up. My elbows were in bad shape. I just had a lot of nagging injuries from football, and they kind of reared their head when I was in the fight game.
Yeah, right. So with sort of 8 or 9 months of experience sort of going into a big show like that, like so what was the secret to getting through if you're sort of falling apart as well?
The shots of cortisone helped. That made all the swelling and everywhere go down, and I was able to kind of trudge through it and hold myself together. I don't know. People ask me, like, "Oh, what were you great at when you were fighting, and I really wasn't great at anything. My stand-up was mediocre at best. My ground game was pretty good, but I mean, my wrestling was average. I think the thing that I was the best at was I just had the intangibles. I could just fight, you know. I just had, I guess, the will, and I didn't get rattled. And I don't know. I was just a gamer. I could get in the ring, and guys that I would train with, because I trained with a lot of the guys that I fought, and the guys that I would train with, like in the room, they were all a lot better than me. But then I get in the ring, and for whatever reason, I could just put it together. And so I'd say that was the one thing that I had that was probably my greatest attribute, is that I was good under pressure, and I could just focus, and it all just came together in the ring for whatever reason.
I think that's most of the battle, though, isn't it? There's sort of the mental side of things. Like, you hear all kinds of stories of guys who are just champions in the gym and just can't put it together on fight night. So you're probably better off being the opposite. In that respect.
Yeah, I would much rather be great in the ring than great in the room. That's for sure.
Definitely. As mentioned, you made it to the final on season 2, eventually losing by split decision to Rashad Evans. Can you tell us a little bit about that fight and what it was like to share the cage with Rashad?
Yeah, it was a great fight. We were both, I think it's obvious by looking at the tape that we were both pretty exhausted by the end of it. He was very quick. And Rashad's he's a good dude. We liked each other on the show. We weren't close, but we remained friends afterwards, after we fought each other. And I haven't talked to him in years, but it was an honor to be in that position and to fight someone like Rashad. I think that, you know, when people watched that fight, he wasn't picked real high either, and I was picked last. But I think when people watched that fight at the end, if they watched the season, they watched that fight, I think that everybody realized that maybe the two best guys at that time on the show were the two guys that made it into the final. And we put on a great fight for the fans, and I think everybody really appreciated it. And I was honored to be a part of it.
Definitely. After one more sort of fight in the UFC, it looks like you might have been released there and reeled off 3 quick wins on the regional circuit before having a return to the UFC. Sort of, how did all that sort of come about, and sort of how did you feel when you found yourself sort of back on the regional circuit?
Well, I lost that fight to Rashad, and then I fought Dan Christensen, and that was also a really good fight. And I was still very new at fighting at that time, and he caught me in an arm bar, and I didn't really know how to get out of it. And I mean, now I look back on it, and I'm like, what an idiot. But and I was looking over at the corner, and Pat Miletich was trying to tell me what to do, and then I just got caught, and it actually ended up breaking my elbow. And then I was supposed to fight Anthony Hardonk that November, and actually it was actually a week before that fight. I was rolling at the gym, and was rolling with, I think, Sam Hogar, and we were just rolling, and something funny happened, and my knee just went out and tore all kinds of crap in my knee. And so I had to pull out of that fight, and this was before the UFC carried insurance on any of the fighters, and I didn't have insurance. So I basically, from that point on, I just had to tape it up. And my knee would slip out of place all the time. It was pretty miserable. But then, funny story, the first fight after I was supposed to fight Hardonk, was like a month later. or a month and a half later in early January. And my manager, Monty Cox, called me and was like, hey, I talked to the UFC. They're going to let you take a couple fights outside of the UFC, you know, to test your knee and just get back in fight shape. I was like, all right. He's like, you're fighting at this small show up in Cedar Lake, Iowa, or Clear Lake, Iowa. And I was like, all right, fine. It's January, and it's like the people are like 100 vehicles parked out on the ice fishing, and it's like -10 degrees outside. Well, like a week before I got up there, a buddy of mine called me, and he asked, he's like, have you seen this guy that you're fighting? I'm like, no. He's like, what do you know about him? I'm like, I don't know. He's like 5-0, but regional shows. I was like, he's a champion in something up there, but shouldn't be a big deal. He's like, you should go online and take a look at this guy. So I went online, and he was 6'9" and 290 pounds, and he was built like me. And I called my manager, and I was like, what are you doing to me? He's like, oh, it's no big deal. He hadn't had a whole lot of fights. I'm like, I haven't had a whole lot of fights. I was like, this guy's a monster. He's bigger than me. He's like, oh, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. I'm like, all right. So I go up there, and the first round, it was only 3-minute rounds. In the first round, I just hit him and knocked him down and got on top and was ground and pounding. And then the round was over. And the second round, I came out, and it turned out he was wearing gloves that had a metal bar that ran through the palm of them. And it was a small cage, and I was backing him up against the cage, and he stepped, and I stepped right into a hook, and he hit me and cut me above the eye and below the eye, and my face swelled up, looked like I had a grapefruit in the side of my mouth. And he knocked me down, and he jumped on top of me, and I hit an arm bar on him, which he got out of, and then I beat him with a triangle choke. And I got up, and I looked like I had just been hit in the face with a bag of nickels or something like that. I mean, it was all swole up. And then that night, Pat Miletich was gluing. He was using super glue to glue the cuts closed. And he was doing this one on the bottom. I had my eye closed. And he was like doing it. He's like, all right, open your eye. And I opened one eye, and this one, he had glued my eyelashes to my face. So my eyelashes glued down. So the next morning I had to go to like the pharmacy and get some little scissors and cut my eyelashes off. And then I had eyelashes stuck to my face for about a week till they fell off of there. But yes, sorry. I think I had another fight, and then I fought Heath Herring at UFC 69. I think that was when GSP fought Matt Serra. And just, I didn't really have a very good showing in that fight. That was probably the only fight I've ever been in where I was like really nervous before the fight for whatever reason. And I don't know, I just didn't show out. I guess I've watched the video once, and when I got done with the fight, I went in the back room, and Monty, my manager, was like, and I don't really remember anything. He hit me with a hard punch in the first round. I don't remember anything after that. But I guess at the end of the fight, I hit him with a knee and dropped him and got his back. And instead of just pounding him out, which I maybe would have been able to win the fight, I went for some stupid arm bar from his back. So I'm just retarded. And Monty's like, why'd you go for that arm bar when you had his back at the end of the fight? And I'm like, what are you talking about? I had his back. He's like, yeah, you hit him with a knee. I was like, I hit him with a knee. It's like, never mind. Don't worry about it. So I watched the fight. I'm like, oh, I'm an idiot. But and then that was it. After that fight, that was my last UFC fight. And then it was just a few more, low-level shows after that. But my body was pretty wrecked last year and a half, couple years of my career. So
yeah, so for someone with such a wrecked body, you reeled off I think 20 odd fights plus the Ultimate Fighter in just under 5 years. Were you in some kind of hurry, or was MMA sort of a full-time gig for you, or did you just?
It was a full-time gig. I mean, back then guys fought a lot more. I tried to fight like every couple of weeks, or I mean, every couple of months. If it was like in low level stuff, every 2 or 3 months. And then if it was the UFC, I mean, I was trying to get in a fight, probably every 6 months or so. And now, to be honest with you, I don't really watch UFC near as much as I used to. I don't really know anybody anymore, although Rothwell's still fighting and he's still winning. He's doing good, which I'm glad to see. And then I think Robbie's still fighting, Robbie Lawler. But other than that, I think all the guys that I trained with we're all broke down old fogies.
Yeah, so
trying to remember our kids' names and keep from eating our dinners out of a blender.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So yeah, you retired in 2009 with a record of 13-7. How did you come to the decision to retire, and what was the sort of transition like out of competition?
Well, I had moved away from doing I'd moved away from Iowa. I was no longer at Militich Camp. I moved to Columbia, Missouri, and I became a firefighter in Jefferson City. And I had been a firefighter for, I don't know, probably a year-ish when I decided to retire. Maybe not quite that long, but it was just, I couldn't take any more punches. I was having real cognitive issues. My knees and my joints were pretty much trashed. And I don't know, I felt like I had a really good career, but the end of my career was not good at all. I was losing to guys I should have never lost to. And I don't want to say that I had a great, legacy or anything, but what legacy I did have, I didn't want to ruin by going out there and just getting the crap kicked out of me by guys that, in my prime would have had no business being in the ring with me. So, and for health concerns, my wife she was my fiance at the time, but she was really concerned because I would walk into a room and forget why I was there. She would send me to the store to get like 3 things, and I'd come back with 10, but none of the 3 things that she wanted. It was a bad deal. And so I decided to walk away from it. And I went to a doctor and got brain scans and all that stuff. And I don't know, I think doctors probably say things are worse than they are, but he was like, you can never get hit in the head again. You got all these problems, but I started taking like natural supplements and things to reduce swelling and stuff. And I feel like I'm probably as back to normal as possible as far as my cognitive abilities go. I have a job that requires me to do a lot of thinking, and I've done very well at it. So I think I'm probably doing okay. Hopefully it will continue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, concussion's a pertinent issue in sports at the moment. So it's good to hear that there hasn't been any sort of lasting effects so far. Now, I've heard of you referred to as Mr. Gogo Platter in the past, obviously due to your 2 wins via the Gogo Platter submission, which is obviously a rare move. Was that always one of your favorite weapons, or was it just sort of like a coincidence that you hit sort of a couple of them in your career?
Well, the first time I ever encountered it was I was training. It was actually when I was training to fight Rashad. I was training in Cincinnati with Rich Franklin and George Gurgel, and I think Tim Sylvia was there with us, and Joe Riggs was with us. And I was rolling with Joe, and Joe hit a Gogo Platter on me. And I was like, what the hell was that? He's like, that's a Gogo Platter. I was like, I'm going to learn how to do that. And I used to be very flexible. I started doing yoga when I was, I think, probably 22, and was doing it, very regularly. Actually, I taught yoga for a short time to football players, not like not doing a lot of ohms and stuff. More like we call it like it was like meathead yoga. But I was very flexible, and so I started trying to hit it on people in practice, and I was getting to where I could catch a lot of people in it. I think mainly because nobody expected for my big ass to be able to do that at all. And yeah, so I guess the first time was up in Minnesota, in Minneapolis against Zach Jensen, who I think he was on a season of The Ultimate Fighter. I can't remember which one. Yeah, Zach was a wrestler, and he was a strong guy. And I remember he like kind of bulldogged me against the cage, and I got out away from the cage, and then he like grabbed me from behind. We were standing, and I tried to like monkey roll for a knee bar. I rolled so hard that I hit my head against his knee, almost knocked myself out. And he jumped on top of me, and I hit the go-go on him. And I remember thinking, because I was like pulling down on it hard, and I remember thinking, well, this doesn't even work. This guy doesn't. He tried picking me up. I was like, this didn't even work. And then all of a sudden, the referee tapped me, and I let go, and he was out cold. I was like, oh, maybe it does work, I guess. And so. And then it was actually the next fight I had after that. I fought Bo Cantrell at King of the Cage in Reno, and hit it on him too. So it's kind of like lightning struck twice, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. And when you look back at your career overall, like how do you reflect? Sort of how do you feel about how it all went?
I think that you know, time heals all wounds. When I first got done fighting, got out of fighting, it, you know, like the only thing that I would remember was just the losses and just the embarrassment over some of the losses I had. And it really kind of ate at me, and it bothered me. But I think the further you get away from it, the more you just remember the good times, and not even really so much the fights anymore, but just the opportunities that I had and the people that I got to meet, and just, you know, the fun that I got to have. I mean, I got to spend, you know, part of my 20s and my 30s just, I mean, living the dream for a young man. I mean, just traveling around and not really caring about anything. I was single, and it was a lot of fun. I wouldn't trade it for anything. But you got to grow up sometime. you can't do that forever. But you know, I ended up, it was at the end of my career, I met my wife, and then got married. Now I got 3 kids, and it's amazing how life changes from the, you know, single life of a professional athlete to now. If I'm up past, like, if we go out ever, like past 10 o'clock, I like turn into a pumpkin. I gotta be home. I used to watch the sun come up, so it's a whole different life.
Yeah, I feel you. Absolutely. So do you still train? Are you still involved in the fight game in any way, or you completely put that to bed?
I train occasionally. I have 3 young children between the ages of 2 and 10, which eat up about 99% of my time. And if I can squeeze 1%, I got a buddy of mine that lives in the community I live in, who is he's a retired Marine, and he has some mats set up in his sunroom. So I go over there and beat him up in front of his family every once in a while. But my daughter, who's 10, she trained for a while when she was 6 and 7, and then my wife wants to get her back into it, and she wants to get back into it. So I think once or twice a week, I may have an opportunity to go somewhere and actually get some rolling in. The opportunities I do have to go and roll, I guess it's kind of like riding a bike. I still feel pretty good, and I still do well. So of course I am like twice everybody's size, so I think that probably helps.
Yeah.
But no, it's something that I've not walked away from. I want to continue training jiu-jitsu. I can't do any more sparring really. I got a buddy of mine that he's 50 and he used to be professional Muay Thai, and he's actually going to do a smoker, I think, up in Oklahoma.
Right.
He's like, you should come up there. I'm like, absolutely not. First of all, I'd have to freaking lie to my wife or get divorced in order to go up there. But I do really enjoy grappling, and it's something that I want to continue to do.
Brilliant. And when your kids are older, if they came to you and told you they wanted to get into MMA, knowing what you know now, how would you feel about that?
I don't know. It's kind of like football. I wouldn't mind my kid playing football. I don't have a problem with it. I wouldn't want him to do it until he was probably in at least 7th or 8th grade. I live in Texas now, and like kids start playing football here when they get out of diapers, like full contact. And I think it's kind of crazy. I mean, I want all my kids to be able to handle themselves. I want them all to learn boxing and learn Muay Thai and kickboxing and jiu-jitsu and wrestling. And I want them to, I think that it's important for all children to learn that. I think that it keeps them from getting bullied. It keeps them from becoming bullies. It gives them a lot of self-confidence. It learns them how to teaches them how to handle themselves, just having no one to rely on but themselves. Not just in a fight situation, but just in life in general, being able to have the confidence that they can handle themselves. If they said, I want to get into the fight game, I think probably the worst thing I could do is be like, absolutely not, you're not going to do it, because I remember what I was like. And if someone told me no, then it was damn sure I was going to do it. I would probably just try to offer as much advice as I could. But hopefully it's not a conversation I really have to have. But if I did, I would just try and provide support and good advice instead of just, you're not doing that.
Absolutely. So what's your sort of work situation now? What do you do for a crust?
Well, like I said, I was a firefighter for 6 years back in Missouri, and my wife had an opportunity with her work to come to Texas. And at the time, I was running my own construction company on the side. My dad, he built custom homes my whole life. So I started working for him when I was a little kid. And then he was getting near retirement age, and he asked me to, if I would like to take over his business. And I was like, absolutely. And so we started working together, and that lasted about a year. And then our wives stepped in between us before we killed each other. And, which I don't know if you've ever worked with family before, but it's either going to go bad or real bad, I think, sometimes. But anyway, we got away from it before we hated each other, which was good. But then I started my own company, and I was doing that. Well, my wife got transferred to Texas. I got a job working for a small company doing remodel work, and then I got a job with a commercial company, which I was just working in a cubicle, and I hated it. And then about 5 years ago in September, I think, I started with a company called Coventry Homes in Texas. It's a production residential homes, kind of a little bit higher end production work. And I started off as a construction manager with them. And then after about a year and a half, I got promoted to a lead construction manager. And then I got promoted to production manager, which is basically another promotion, which doesn't really mean a whole lot, but just a pay grade. And then they promoted me to project manager in January. So now I'm no longer building houses. Now I oversee, I have team of construction managers and sales counselors. And so I oversee 4 projects, like 4 different communities, and then we're supposed to add a couple more in the next year or so. And so I oversee all that. And so it's I really love building houses. I'm no longer actually building houses, but it's very challenging. I spend a lot more time in the office than I used to, which I'm not super crazy about, but it is a very challenging job. For like the first 2.5 months, I thought that I was going to get fired like every day because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But then all of a sudden one day it just clicked, and I feel like I'm doing pretty well now. So, but I do love my job. It's a good company to work for. So I got really lucky in that. My wife is my headhunter. She knew I didn't like where I was working, and she was like, "I'm going to get you a job." And she got me this interview. And that was 5 years ago, and it's been just up ever since.
That sounds like you've landed on your feet.
Yeah.
Now, I do have to ask actually about the origins of the Hillbilly Heartthrob nickname. Where did that one come from, and sort of, yeah, how did you end up with that?
Well, I was with some friends, and we were drinking, and we were trying to come up with a nickname, and and I came up with that one because if I ever decided to get out of fighting and get into like the WWE or something, I wouldn't have to change my name. It would be like the perfect like jumping off point. And it was ludicrous. I mean, I grew up in a little town, but Hillbilly was just pretty much making fun of people from California because they thought that everybody that didn't live on the coast like didn't have running water or electricity. So it's kind of a jab at them, and it was also just ridiculous. And anyway, when I came up with it, my friends were like, "That's the worst name I ever heard," and I was like, "Perfect." So that's what I used. And then after a little while, I kind of got through. I was like, "Yeah, maybe this is kind of silly," but by that time, it was too far gone. I did start signing my name Hellbilly, like HELLBILLY, not putting the Heartthrob and not Hill, but Hellbilly. I started signing that a little bit later, but by then it was just too far gone. It was the Hillbilly Heartthrob. So actually, my daughter thinks I'm a famous person because I'm on YouTube. There's a couple like MMA videos. One about like the most giant men to ever fight in MMA, and there's another one about the worst nicknames ever. And I was on there for the worst nickname, one of the worst nicknames ever. So it didn't matter that it was one of the one of the worst nicknames. My daughter just thought that that was definitive for her that I'm some kind of superstar because I'm on YouTube, which is kind of silly.
Well, I think that's how you make it these days. You know, once you're YouTube famous, and you know, it's off to the races. But I wholeheartedly disagree with that YouTube video there. The Hillbilly Heartthrob is one of my all-time favorite fight names. So thank you for that.
It reminds me, there was a guy on like The Ultimate Fighter a number of years ago that was also the Hillbilly Heartthrob, another heavyweight. I don't remember who he was. I think he lost early. It was like he made it to like the prelims, because they did like prelims for a while. I think where they had like 20 guys or something like that. And anyway, there was a heavyweight that was the Hillbilly Heartthrob, and like the other guys on the show, I didn't watch it, but I guess they were like, "You're not the Hillbilly Heartthrob." Why anyone would want to copy that, I'm not really sure.
All right, there you go. So was you sort of touched on the WWE sort of being in the back of your mind there. Was that something that you'd sort of seriously considered as a potential career path, or was that just sort of something that you kicked around at the bar with the guys?
It was nothing that I ever pursued, but I guess it was always something that I thought might be a possibility. The same buddy of mine that encouraged me to get into fighting, that had fought in Japan, also fought in the WWE. So I figured, I was like, hey, if he can do both of these things, and this doesn't work out for me, I can just just ease over to that. But it was never anything that I pursued. I never spoke to anybody about it. It was just, it seemed like maybe a logical step if things weren't working out for fighting. But I don't know. Sometimes I think those guys might take a worse beating, just all the crazy crap they got to do. And they do like a show every week.
Yeah, exactly. Hectic schedule. All right, Brad, before I let you go, do you have anyone that you'd like to shout out, or have you got anything that you'd like to promote? I'll hand over to you.
Oh, well, I guess my family back home in Missouri, my sister Annie and my brother Brian. My brother Brian, actually, he fought as well. And he's still involved he does some coaching and things like that. And then he also, if you live in Kansas City and you need deck or fence work, my brother owns Staunch Properties. So STAUNCH, Staunch Properties. So give him a call. One of my old sponsors for years and years was MG Sports Supplements and Shocker Nutrition out of San Luis Obispo. My buddy Matt Gaines. So if you're looking for supplements, I would contact him. I would say Warrior Wear, but I don't think Warrior Wear is around anymore. So I'm kind of like all the people who used to sponsor me have kind of gone the way of the dodo, it seems, but that is life. But now just say hello to all my friends and family. I try to name them all, but that would just take too long. They know who they are. But thank you for having me. It's always fun to talk to people and reminisce about the good old days. So thanks for giving me a soapbox.
No worries at all. Thank you. So much for doing this, and all the best with what's to come.
All right. Thank you very much.